I will present the introduction. The primary objective is to evaluate and interpret the financial performance of book company using key financial ratio and forecasting method. In the hospitality and tourism industry, book companies supply essential product and such as bottled drink, dairy product and food ingredient to hotel, restaurant and catering service. Ratios such as profitability, liquidity, efficiency and solvency had stakeholder assess how will a company manage its resources, generate income and maintain financial health by combining historical financial data with ratio analysis and projection. The study intend to deliver and valuable information for investor, manager and policymaker alike.
Okay, the next slide is background Nestle Berhad. First point is history and operation. Nestle Malaysia began operation in 1912 and was incorporated in 1962. It was listed on Bursa Malaysia in 1989 and it currently headquartered in Mutiara Damansara with 6 factories nationwide. The second point is iconic product and brands. Has more than 500 products such as Milo, Nescafe, Maggi, KitKat, and Nestle. They all covering categories such as beverages, dairy, and nutrition. And the third point is commitment and sustainability and community carries out various initiatives based on the principle of creating shared value (CSV), such as environmental, conservational, and sustainable resources and community development. The last point is talent development and work culture. Focus on employee development, training, career advancement, and creating an inclusive and well-supported work environment. That's all.
Hi, so I would like to present about background FNHP. Firstly is company overview. Fraser and Neff Holding Berhad or FNB is a subsidiary of Fraser and Neff Limited, established in 1883. Is it one of Malaysian leading food and beverage company with an annual revenue of 5 billion ringgit Malaysian. So next is market presence and products. FNHB operate in Malaysia, Brunei, Thailand and Indochina and export 19 countries focusing on halal markets. Its well-known products include 100 Plus, FNN, Teapot and Magnolia. The company is also a market leader in evaporated and sweetened condensed milk in both Malaysia and Thailand. After that is strategy expansion. A part of its growth strategy, FNHB acquired Sri Nona companies in 2020 and Coca-Cola in 2022. This acquisition helped the company expand into new food categories and strengthen its position in the Asian market. Next is operation and sustainability. FNN has a strong workforce of 2,500 employees and operate 13 modern green certified manufacturing plants across Malaysia and Thailand. All facilities and international certificates include the ISO 40001, ISO 22000 to 2005, GMP and HACCP. The company is committed to environmental sustainability, community well-being, and meeting consumer needs. And the last one is version. FNHB version is become the leading food and beverage player in Asian through innovation, quality, and customer satisfaction. So that's all from me.
Let's begin with the current ratio. In 2023, Nestle current ratio was only 0.61, down from 0.71 in 2022. This shows that Nestle may face difficulty in meeting short-term obligations. Nestle quick ratio improved slightly from 0.21 to 0.22, still well below 1. This reflects tight liquidity. And next, Nestle recording negative working capital in both years, worsening from negative RN 659,753 in 2022 to negative RM 831,878 in 2023, and current ratio increased from 2.68 in 2022 to 2.95 in 2023, indicating a strong and healthy short-term liquidity position. FNN improved from 1060 to 2.05, showing a very strong ability to meet short-term liability even without relying on inventory. On the other hand, FNN showed positive working capital increase from RM 1.39 million to 1.66 million. This show indicating good financial flexibility. In summary, FNN has a much stronger liquidity position than Nestle, making it better prepared to handle short-term financial obligations. Next, let's move on to the total asset turnover. Nestle ratio declined slightly from 2.23 to 2.16. Next is account receivable turnover. Nestle improved slightly from 10.33 to 10.40 times, meaning is collect receivable faster. Looking at the average collection period, Nestle reduced it from 35 to 34 days. And then for the inventory turnover, Nestle performance jumped from 5.97 to 8.48, showing very efficient inventory use. Next, fixed asset turnover, Nestle declined from 2.35 to 2.12. In conclusion, Nestle outperformed in inventory and receivable turnover, showing strong operational control. Next, let's move on to the total asset turnover. FNN also dropped from 2.80 to 2.48. This suggests that both companies were slightly less efficient in using total asset to generate sales. Next is account receivable turnover. FNN increased from 3.80 to 4.99, a stronger improvement but still slower than Nestle. Looking at the average collection period, FNN improved significantly from 95 to 72 days, showing much better cash flow management in 2023. And then for the inventory turnover, FNN improved from 4.95 to 6.54, which is still positive but lower than Nestle. Next, fixed asset turnover, FNN also dropped from 1.98 to 1.37, showing reduced efficiency in using fixed asset. In conclusion, net FNN is catch up in terms of collection efficiency and asset utilization.
Next, I want to present debt ratio. In 2023, Nestle and Berhad showed slight improvement in its financial position. The debt ratio decreased from 2.37% in 2022 to 1.10% in 2023, while the debt-to-equity ratio improved from 4.67% to 4.28%. Additionally, the time interest earned ratio increased from 3.60 to 4.01, indicating a better ability to cover interest expenses. Next, debt ratio for FNN Holding Berhad. In 2023, FNN Holdings Berhad saw an increase in its debt ratio from 28.80% to 34.43%, and debt ratio to equity ratio from 40.44% to 45.64%. However, its time interest earned ratio improved from 6.33 to 7.60, indicating a stronger ability to cover interest payments despite higher leverage. Next, Nestle and Berhad's profitability ratios for 2022 and 2023. From the table, the return on equity improved from 7.07% to 8.94%, and return on assets increased from 1.25% to 2%, showing better efficiency in generating profits. Gross profit margin from 44.77% to 46.28%, indicating better cost management. The operating profit margin stayed quite stable, while the net profit margin increased from 0.96% to 1.25%, showing higher overall profitability. Overall, Nestlé performed better in 2023 compared to 2022. Profitability ratio for FNN Holding Berhad. The return on equity increased from 0.05% to 0.66%, and return on asset improved from 0.035% to 0.431%, showing better profitability. The gross profit margin from 35.62% to 40.22%, while operating profit margin increased from 13.77% to 17.51%, indicating stronger operations. Lastly, the net profit margin went up from 0.044% to 0.61%, showing higher net income. Overall, FNN also showed good improvement in 2023.
Today, I will present a comparative analysis of the liquidity ratios between Nestlé Malaysia Berhad and FNN Holding Berhad for the year 2023. So first, looking at the current ratio, which is Nestlé has a value of 0.61 times, whereas FNN stands significantly higher at 2.95 times. So this indicates that FNN is better position to cover its short-term debts with its current asset compared to Nestlé. Next is the quick ratio, which excludes inventory from current asset, show a similar trend. So Nestlé quick ratio is 0.22 times, while FNN holds a strong, which is 2.05 times. So this highlights FNN's superior ability to meet short-term obligation without relying heavily on inventory. Lastly, we compare the net working capital, which is Nestlé has a negative net working capital of approximately RM 831,878, while FNN has a positive, which is 1,658,540. So this means FNN financial condition is healthier, allowing it to cover immediate expenses efficiently. So in summary, FNN Holding Berhad demonstrates stronger liquidity and financial stability compared to Nestlé Berhad in 2023. So it's ensuring better capability to manage short-term obligations. For the comparative analysis of the liquidity ratios for Nestlé Berhad and FNN Holding Berhad for the year 2022. So first, let's look at the current ratio, which is Nestlé has a current ratio of 0.71 times, while FNN boasts a higher ratio of 2.68 times. So this indicates that FNN is better positioned to cover its short-term liabilities with current assets. Moving on the quick ratio, which is Nestlé quick ratio is 0.21 times compared to FNN 1.60 times. So this shows that FNN can address its short-term obligation without relying on inventory more effectively than Nestlé. So next, we discuss net working capital. Nestlé has a net working capital of 659,753, whereas FNN has a substantially higher amount, which is 1,369,377. So this reflects FNN's strong financial standing, allowing it to pay its bill more immediately. So in summary, FNN Holding Berhad exhibits superior liquidity ratios compared to Nestle Berhad, demonstrating a stronger capacity to manage short-term obligation. So for the comparative activity ratio analysis for Nestle Berhad and FNN Holding Berhad for the year 2033, so for the total asset turnover, Nestle show a total asset turnover of 2.16 times lower than FNN 2.48 times. So this indicates that FNN utilize its assets more efficiently. So for the account receivable turnover, Nestle turnover is 10.40 times, significantly higher than FNN 4.99 times. So this suggests that Nestle is better at collecting receivable. So for the average collection period, the average collection period for the Nestle is 34 days, whereas FNN takes just 72 days. So this demonstrates that FNN has a longer cash flow cycle. Next, inventory turnover, which is Nestle also outperformed in inventory turnover with 8.48 times compared to FNN 6.54 times. So this indicates better inventory management by Nestle. Fixed asset turnover. So finally, regarding fixed asset turnover, Nestle 2.12 times again surpass FNN 1.37 times. So this highlight Nestle greater efficiency in utilizing its fixed assets. So in conclusion, both companies have unique strengths. While Nestle excel in managing receivable and inventory, so FNN shows superior asset utilization. Next, I will presenting a comparative analysis of activity ratios for Nestle and FNN for the year 2022. So total asset turnover for year 2022 is Nestle recorded a total assets turnover of 2.23 times. So in comparison, FNN Holding achieved 2.80 times. So this indicates that FNN is utilizing its asset more efficiently than Nestle. So for the account receivable turnover, Nestle stand at 10.33 times while FNN is at 3.80 times. So this shows that Nestle is more effective in collecting receivable, demonstrating superior cash flow management. For the last one is average collection periods. The average collection periods for Nestle is 35 days, significantly lower than FNN's 95 days. So this shorter duration against highlight Nestle's strength in handling receivable. So for the last one is inventory turnover, which is Nestle has inventory turnover of 5.97 times compared to FNN's 4.95 times. So this suggests that Nestle manage its inventory more effectively, optimizing stock level. So for the fixed asset turnover, finally in terms of fixed asset turnover, Nestle is at 2.35 times while FNN is at 1.68 times. So this indicates that Nestle is better at generating sales from its fixed assets. So in conclusion, while FNN show higher total asset turnover, Nestle excel in accounts receivable and inventory management along with fixed asset efficiency. So this insight can help in strategic planning and decision making for both companies moving forward.
Next, I will present the comparative analysis of debt ratio for Nestle and Berhad and FNN Holding Berhad. Let's begin with the debt ratio, which show how much of the company assets are financed by debt. In 2022, Nestle had a very high debt ratio of 82.37%, which slightly improved to 81.10% in 2023. This means Nestle relies heavily on debt and may face higher financial risks. In comparison, FNN had a much lower debt ratio, starting at 28.30% in 2022 and rising to 34.43% in 2023. Although the ratio increased, FNN still remains in healthy and more stable debt position. Next is the debt to equity ratio, which indicates how much debt a company is using to finance its assets relative to shareholder equity. Nestle ratio decreased from a high 467% to 428%, which is still a concern, but the decline suggests a slight improvement in managing its capital structure. Meanwhile, FNN debt to equity increased from 40.44% to 52.64%, which is still acceptable and show FNN is gradually using debt, possibly for expansion purpose. Now let's look at time interest earned, TIE ratio, which measures a company ability to cover its interest expenses. Nestle improved its TIE ratio from 3.60 to 4.01, indicating better earnings capacity to meet interest payment. FNN outperformed here, increasing from 6.33 to 7.60. This suggests that FNN is in a stronger position to service its debt, making it less risky for lenders. In summary, while Nestle showed improvement, it still carries higher financial risks due to high leverage, whereas FNN demonstrates strong debt control and better interest coverage, making it more financially stable. Now let's look at the profitability performance in 2023 for both Nestle and FNN. Let's start with return on equity ROE. Nestle records 8.94%, which means it was able to generate nearly 9 cents of profit for every RM1 of shareholders' equity. FNN, on the other hand, had a much lower ROE of only 0.66%, which show a weak return to its shareholders. Next, return on asset. Nestle achieved 2.00%, which show decent efficiency in using its assets to make profits. FNN was at 0.431%, which is still very low, indicating underperformance in generating profits from assets. Now, for the gross profit margin, Nestle reached 46.228%, showing it kept almost half of its revenue after recovering the cost of goods sold. FNN had a gross margin of 40.22%, which is still good but lower than Nestle, meaning Nestle had better control over its production or sourcing costs. For operating profit margin, Nestle posted 18.24%, reflecting high operational efficiency. FNN wasn't far behind at 17.51%, which is an improvement and shows the company is managing its operating expenses well. Finally, for the net profit margin, Nestle's figure was 1.25%, meaning its company earned RM 1.25 from every RM 100 in sales after all costs and tax. FNN had 0.61%, which is a step up from the previous year, but still significantly lower than Nestle. For comparative analysis profitability ratio 2022, starting again with return on equity, Nestle achieved 7.07%, a solid return on the shareholders' money. FNN had a very low 0.05%, showing that the company barely generated any returns for its investor in that year. Next, return on asset. Nestle recorded 1.25%, which means it's earned RM 125% for every RM 100 of its total assets. FNN only had 0.035%, which is extremely low, showing weak assets productivity. Gross profit margin. Nestle had 44.77%, showing good profitability from its core business. FNN had a 35.62% margin, meaning it had to spend more on production or sourcing compared to Nestle. Operating profit margin, Nestle had 18.67%, indicating strong efficiency in managing day-to-day operations. FNN had only 13.77%, which is lower but still show positive operating profit. Finally, the net profit margin. Nestle had 0.96%, which is not very high but still show positive net profit. FNN was just 0.044%, almost breaking even. So to summarize, Nestle and Berhad clearly leads in profitability across all metrics, showing stronger returns. better cost control and efficient asset use. While FNN is improving, but still need to focus on boosting overall profitability. That's all from me. Thank you.
Next, I will present a overall analysis financial comparison between Nestle and Berhad and FNN Holding Berhad for the years 2022 to 2023. Let's begin with the liquidity. Nestle current and quick ratio remain below 1, indicating tight liquidity. Its net working capital worsened further into the negative. On the other hand, FNN shows strong liquidity with improving ratios and growing positive working capital. In terms of efficiency, Nestle saw better inventory management but declining asset turnover ratios. FNN showed notable improvement in receivable and inventory turnover, although its asset efficiency also slipped slightly.
Looking at leverage, Nestle remains heavily dependent on debit, despite a slight reduction in its debit to equity ratio. FNN, while increasing its debit level slightly, maintains a much healthier and more conservative leverage position. When it comes to profitability, Nestle outperformed significantly with strong returns and impressive margin growth, especially in gross profit. FNN improved, but its returns remain modest in comparison. To conclusion of overall analysis, Nestle excels in profitability but needs to improve its liquidity. FNN offers financial stability and liquidity, stretch but lacks in profitability. Both companies have clear areas for improvement and represent different risk return profiles for investors. Thank you.
Nestle and FNM Holding both show good financial performance, but in different areas. Nestle is more profitable, which suits investors who are willing to take higher risk for the greater return. However, it also has high debt and weaker liquidity, which indicate higher short-term financial risk. On the other hand, FNN is more stable with strong liquidity, low debt, and consistent profit growth. Therefore, investors who prefer low risk and steady growth may feel FNN more suitable.